show.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. Today in Washington, Congressman Patrick Murphy held a press conference to call for the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Congressman Murphy is a Blue Dog Democrat, a freshman in Congress, and an Iraq War veteran who was with the 82nd Airborne. He's taken the lead in the House in the fight to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. On the Senate side, one of the most interesting things about the effort to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell there is that it pits Joe Lieberman, who's always been against the ban, against John McCain, who is both Joe Lieberman's best friend forever and the Senate's leading proponent of keeping the ban in place. Senator McCain is having a hard time of late in his advocacy to keep the ban. Famously, he credited Colin Powell's opinion on Don't Ask, Don't Tell as his main influence in supporting the ban. When General Powell changed his mind recently to oppose the ban instead, that left John McCain in a bit of a pickle. But John McCain has recently picked up another justification for supporting Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It's a letter that he says he finds very convincing, a letter from retired military officers.
This is a letter signed by over 1,000 former general and flag officers who have weighed in on this issue. I think that we all in Congress should pay attention and benefit from the experience and knowledge of over 1,000 former general officers and flag officers, and where they say, we firmly believe that this law which Congress passed to protect good order, discipline, and morale in the unique environment of the armed forces deserves continued support.
John McCain has cited this letter over and over and over again. With Colin Powell saying that he wants Don't Ask, Don't Tell overturned now, this letter has gained sort of the anchor position among people who want to keep Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Well, today the advocacy group Service Members United, which wants to get rid of the ban, issued a report on what that letter really is. It seems that the people who want to keep Don't Ask, Don't Tell may once again be out of luck in terms of their reliance on this thing to make their case. For example, it turns out that a number of the people who have signed the letter are dead, which is awkward. The people who coordinated the letter have explained that some of those signers signed the letter before they died, but there is an exception. In one case, a general who is now dead had his name signed to the letter before he was dead, but not by him. It was by his wife. She signed the general's name to the letter saying Don't Ask, Don't Tell should be kept. The general himself, before his death, had not been able to communicate for 6 years or so due to Alzheimer's. Another general told Service Members United that he, quote, never agreed to have his name put on the letter, but it ended up there anyway. Another said he doesn't remember even being asked about the issue, let alone whether his name could be used. Another retired flag officer, whose name is on the letter, is demanding that the group that put his name on it take it off. In total, the average age of the signatories to the Don't Repeal, Don't Ask, Don't Tell letter is 74. The oldest signer is 98 years old. As Service Members United notes, only a small fraction of these officers have even served in the military during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell period, much less in the 21st century military, which does make it awkward for them to be taken as the authority on what the 19-year-olds of today's military think about the gay. Turns out there is more to this very problematic side of the argument for keeping Don't Ask, Don't Tell. We've got a little scoop on the issue coming up on tomorrow's show at this time. You will not want to miss that. Meanwhile, we'll be right back. Liz Cheney is the daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney. She is a former State Department official in her own right, and she is the white whale of the booking department on the Rachel Maddow show. She just absolutely will not even entertain the idea of coming on the show, even though we ask her all the time, and she does a lot of other TV. Still, though, we live in hope, and in that spirit, I want to tell you what she's doing now. This is the latest Be Afraid salvo from Liz Cheney's group Keep America Scared. I mean, Keep America Safe.
The pendulum is starting to swing. An America run by progressives is really, it's about to happen. We're going to be looking for people who share our values.
So who did President Obama's Attorney General Eric Holder hire? 9 lawyers who represented or advocated for terrorist detainees. Who are these government officials? Eric Holder will only name 2. Why the secrecy behind the other 7? Whose values do they share? Tell Eric Holder, Americans have a right to know the identity of the Al-Qaeda 7.
Scary, right? Lawyers who represent Guantanamo prisoners are essentially terrorists themselves. They're terrorist sympathizers, at least. Well, thanks to intrepid reporting by the Fox News Channel, naturally, we now know the identities of the Al-Qaeda 7. They're all lawyers who now work for the government. But at some point in the past, they played a role as advocates or attorneys for people who were imprisoned, with or without trial, by the Bush administration. The idea is that these newly outed 7 lawyers, in addition to 2 who did this kind of work that we already knew about, they're like a sleeper cell inside the Justice Department. I mean, they defended people suspected of terrorism. So they're sort of suspected of terrorism too, right? They defended people accused of terrorism, so that means they were defending terrorism, sort of. And it turns out that this is way bigger than just 9 Justice Department attorneys whom Liz Cheney has ferreted out as Al-Qaeda simps. Turns out, 34 of the 50 largest law firms, 34 of the 50 largest law firms in America have done work on behalf of Guantanamo prisoners. 34 of the 50 biggest law firms in America. They're Al-Qaeda. The Al-Qaeda 34. Even the law firm of Bracewell Giuliani. Yes, that Giuliani is in on this. A senior counsel for Bracewell Giuliani, Carol Elder Bruce, working right now on 2 habeas cases for terrorism detainees. Rudy Giuliani's law firm. Nice, right? Terrorist sympathizers. They're Al-Qaeda. Osama bin Giuliani. And a TRMS investigation can reveal tonight that this shadowy conspiracy goes much deeper. We can confirm that members of the military's Judge Advocate General Corps have also defended Guantanamo prisoners. Yeah, it's true. People like Lieutenant Colonel David Fracht, who talked about it in uniform right here on this program. We had an Al-Qaeda member on our show. And the military turns out full of the Al-Qaeda. You know who else is a JAG in the military? Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. He's a JAG. JAGs have defended prisoners at Guantanamo. Lindsey Graham is Al-Qaeda. And as we follow the Al-Qaeda 9's trail, we uncover even more frightening evidence of a vast conspiracy. One of them, Neil Katyal, right now the principal deputy solicitor general in the Obama administration, back in 2006, he won a big ruling in the case of Salim Hamdan, Osama bin Laden's former driver. Who sided with him? Who did he win that ruling from? The Supreme Court! Deeper. Katyal also co-wrote an op-ed with Jack Goldsmith, an assistant attorney general during the Bush administration, arguing for a national security court to try terrorists. Al-Qaeda, Jack Goldsmith, he was in the Bush administration's Justice Department, and now we find out he's Al-Qaeda. Now it gets really scary. Neil Katyal also co-wrote an article defending attorneys who take up the cases of Guantanamo prisoners from political attacks, defending these people. His co-author? I want you to prepare yourself. I'm not kidding here. His co-author was Ted Olson. Oh, yes. The man who got the Supreme Court to give the White House to President Bush and Vice President Cheney. Supreme Court again. Whose values do they share? Are they the real Al-Qaeda 9, Clarence bin Thomas? Hang on a second here. Think about all of this. Jack Goldsmith, Bush Justice Department. Ted Olson, Bush's Solicitor General. The Supreme Court. Do you see where this trail is leading? How could we avoid the conclusion that President Bush was in on this too? He hired and knowingly employed all these Al-Qaeda guys. He was commander-in-chief when all those Al-Qaeda military lawyers were defending all those Guantanamo prisoners. Terrorist sympathizers all serving under George W. Bush. How can we avoid the obvious conclusion that George W. Bush is Al-Qaeda? And if George W. Bush is Al-Qaeda, he allowed to become the most powerful vice president in history Dick Cheney. What, Dick Cheney wasn't in on it? He must have been. He was there. And if Dick Cheney is Al-Qaeda, then, oh man, Liz Cheney, it all comes full circle. You see, she's picked the perfect cover. Who would suspect the person calling out the Al-Qaeda 7 was herself Al-Qaeda? It's the perfect disguise. This is perfect. It was perfect. Thank God we figured it out. They are all in on it. They are all Al-Qaeda. And if Liz Cheney is part of this, then Oh, God. No! Oh, man! I'm Al-Qaeda, too! Oh, my God! I didn't know. I didn't know.
Rachel been Maddow? Let's go. Come on. Here we go. We're going.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, come on.